Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus Day, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio, no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the sudden uptick in the hit pieces against Russia. Not the sort of hit pieces directly related to the Ukrainian war, but just demonization type hit pieces against Russian society and Putin, and these take the exact boilerplate that the globalists use to demonize anybody that opposes the globalist project. Russia is a white supremacist, xenophobic society. It's homophobic. It's evil. It's bad. It's morally bad. And if only they'd allow gay pride marches down the main street of Moscow, then all would be well. This type of stuff. So now the usual suspects are doing this. The BBC in Britain, the ABC in Australia, and the Guardian. That sort of thing. So they have to pick create a victim situation, and then say, look at this, and this is happening in Russia. Well, that just proves they're fascist, Nazi, Hitlers, and that. So it's that sort of, no mention of the Ukrainian war or anything else, and they've adopted a very, the usual hit piece type format. So now the beginning is that Russia is a super racist society, and with Putin in charge, what else do you think? So now they cite a few, and there's a few pieces around where they'll pick typically a woman, and a woman who comes from one of the remote provinces in the greater sort of Russian sphere, or so here's one I'm looking at now, where this woman comes from effectively a province of Mongolia, so an Asian province, Genghis Khan type, it's that sort of extraction. So it comes from a remote rural farming area in the middle of nowhere, and for some reason she just decides to up and move to one of the biggest cities in Russia. So now, if you need to do a little bit of background here and do some, but if I've understood it correctly, she decides, well, she and her husband, who I don't know if they were married at the time they moved, or whether she met him or later on or whatever, but so she's a brown female, and the stories, little son so cries as she tells the story about the evil racism, and it's that pitched like that. So and the cruelties that she suffered at the hands of the white people, the white racists. What about if the white person went to her Asian rural farming? How would they? No, she's moved into from a zero white area into an all white area. Now it appears that she doesn't speak Russian, so she's moved from an area where they speak some sort of local language. She's moved into a big city. She can't speak any Russian. Now, if you want to move from an area that speaks no Russian to an area that speaks only Russian, wouldn't you take Russian lessons? Wouldn't you at least make an effort to be able to speak the language? I mean, if you've planned to move and you're considering it, wouldn't you make the effort to learn the language? At least some effort. Wouldn't you send your children to Russian schools, language schools to learn? It's available where she comes from, so. But apparently she never did any of that. So that's a little bit strange. Now, when they move to this big Russian city, where the language that she speaks, where she comes from, is like an outer remote dialect that nobody speaks. So it's not like that this is an easy gig. It's not like you can just get interpreters or something like that easily. So she puts her kid in the school, and the school, of course, has no facilities to no one speaks the language that the kid speaks. There's no facilities to look after children from other areas. It's up to the parents to have made the effort to get the children prepared. These parents made no effort to do this. So the child arrives in an area, a school where they only speak Russian, they don't speak any other language, and naturally they're struggling. And they look different. They can't speak a language. They've got very rural customs and habits from very rural farming areas. This is the first time they've ever been in a village of more than 10,000 people, or a place of more than 10,000 people. So a very difficult move for anybody under any circumstances. And they're struggling, as you do and as you would. Now, this instead is depicted as, well, no, they're not struggling because they didn't prepare. They're not struggling because they can't speak the language. They're not struggling because they've got very rural customs and habits and views. They're not struggling for any of it. They're struggling because of the evil racism of those fucking white Nazis. So that they've represented or rebranded peasants effectively who've come to the big city very unprepared and trying to say, it's racism or it's xenophobia or it's this or it's that. It's actually none of those things, I don't believe. And when you sort of pick through the lines of the story, you find that they're relying heavily on emotion, and also presenting any difficulties that these people face, any difficulties at all, is purely as a result of evil, racist, Nazi, fascist, xenophobes. And this is what Russian society is like. Because, and the proof that Russian society is evil and xenophobic is because they won't allow gay pride marches down the main street every day. There you go. There's the evidence. So it's pitched along those lines. And I'm sure to the Guardian readers and the dyed-in-the-wool globalists, and we all know Putin's evil anyway. And so it fits into that. Now, to prove, just to demonstrate that the Russians are evil and xenophobic and racist and is the Russian education ministry wants to limit the amount of children in state schools that don't speak Russian, don't speak any Russian, wants to limit the amount of children coming in there because especially from the more rural provinces where interpreters and so on are a little bit hard to come by. And why should they be required to provide interpreters for one child from this area, one child from that area, when those resources are needed for the children that can speak Russian? There's nothing racist in that at all. But this is, again, rebranded as, well, there you go. Look how racist this is. They should throw resources at whatever level in order to prove that they're not racist. And if they don't do that, then they are racist and xenophobic. So it's given that binary touch that if you don't accept illiterate peasants into your community, then you are Hitler. And if you do, you have to give them every break and benefit and affirmative action this and hand out that and freebie such and such. And if you don't do that, you're also xenophobic. So this is the direction that they go in. But the sole purpose, it begins from the position Russia is an evil, racist, xenophobic, white supremacist society, and here's the evidence. So the evidence, in fact, is simply not true. The evidence presented is bullshit, and so they want to they claim within this. Well, there you go. If they want to limit the amount of non-Russian children at schools, in government schools, you want to go to a private school, pay extra for all the interpreters, then you're welcome to do that. But then only the wealthier people could do it. So this is proof that Russia is a racist, xenophobic society. Now, in some of these pieces, there's a mention that if Donald Trump becomes president, that he will end the war with the Ukraine-Russia war. He'll end the war, and he'll force the parties to cut a peace deal of some sort, and that's viewed as a terrible thing. Why exactly, I don't know. Isn't isn't the killing of many tens of thousands of people, a good thing? Well, apparently not. If you're a caring, feeling leftist, then tens of thousands of people dying on a regular basis is a wonderful thing, because it's what, equity? Is that it? So on the view that the war will come to an end if Donald Trump becomes president, I imagine it would happen fairly quickly. I would think within weeks of him taking office. So now the other thing another thing rather that these articles are arguing is, well, before, if it looks like Trump is going to become president, then what we should do is escalate the war to a point where there is no peace deal possible. The bad blood is just so intense that a peace deal just isn't possible. And I don't doubt that's on their minds. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's a bit like rigging elections or rigging court cases or stacking juries. This is something that they're thinking of to try and create an unreversible situation. The mass migration is another one. So that'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But the hit pieces are so pathetic and so globalist propaganda structured that you can just dismiss them out of hand. There are also a few other things, like apparently this brown woman who comes from this remote area of the world, near Mongolia, very rural, apparently is a doctor of huge standing, and her husband is a doctor. But they somehow can't afford anything, and they have to leave Russia because it's so racist or something. Well, hold on, wait a minute. If Russia is so racist, as you claim, why did you leave the area you're in and go to one of the biggest Russian cities without being able to speak a word of Russian? None of this seems to make sense to me. And again, it's a very propaganda thing of, I'm the victim, so I can do whatever I want, and everything is your fault that happens that's bad or unfortunate. It's insane and very childlike. But the journalist that wrote this piece that I'm looking at now is again a radical leftist activist, not a journalist, or they're pretending to be a journalist. But just looking down the list of articles that are going to demonize Russia simply because of its social structure and nothing to do with the war, those are increasing. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of ominous sort of message underlying here of trying to soften us up for an attack on Russia directly, and what that might mean. And we see the same things, for example, in the before the attack on Iraq, for example, there was a big ginning up of stories in the media about how all Iraqis were racist, rapists, pedophiles, and oppressors, and hysterical propaganda to soften us all up with the idea, well, we should go in and take them out because they're so evil. And I'm seeing the same thing developing here. So I'm hoping that it doesn't lead to an escalation of the conflict, but I think it might. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.